Good morning and welcome to Business Wealth Wednesdays. It's Sarah Harding and I'm here with the lovely Alexi Boyd. Thank you for coming all the way from Hornsby to see us this morning.
Oh, it's great to be down here. Love the WeWork, love the excitement and things happening, and I'd love to see one of these up here in Hornsby. It's going to happen. We're going to make it happen.
Cool, sounds really good. So I know we did a bit of an interview recently on your radio show, Small Biz Matters. Thank you so much for having me on. I know I didn't let you get a word in for that,
That's
for
right.
that interview.
I was the interviewer, you're the interviewee, so that's all fine.
Yeah, cool, awesome. Well, tell me a bit more about yourself and in particular your business and what you do.
So I'm a bookkeeper, BAS agent by trade. I have a lovely little practice employing a couple of people up in Hornsby, but that's not really my passion. I guess my passion is my radio show. I love working with small businesses in terms of education, and it's a funny story. I had a business launch up in Hornsby about 5 years ago, and I invited the station manager when I did my media release form, when I sent all the information out to the local media. And it was great because I invited them and the station manager said, "You should do radio." And I went, "Oh, no, I'm not doing radio. Don't be silly. That's a bit strange. It's a bit old school." And my husband spent the next 2 weeks going, "You need to do radio. You need to do radio. You can talk underwater. You need to do radio." So I started out with the Breakfast Boys, and I loved talking to them and chatting alongside them. They were young guys, so it was a very young-centered program. And then it evolved. So within about a year, I had my own program. I was doing my own paneling, my own post-production. And 5 years on, I now broadcast for the ATO. And Small Biz Matters has really become its own beast. It's all about making sure that there's a voice for businesses up in Hornsby, but also small business advocacy across the country. And we're about to go live on the community radio network around Australia, which I'm super excited about.
Ooh.
And I guess it's its own beast now. And I've almost separated myself away from the radio show. But I love doing it. I love talking to people. I want a job where I can just talk to people. And my husband said, "That's a politician." And I went, "Oh, no, not that. Stick to radio."
One thing at a time.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. Well, that sounds really great. So when it comes to your business and your radio show, I know that's a big focus for you, but are there any other ways you're looking to get out there and grow your business? And what advice would you give to a business owner about how to stand out from the crowd? Because I know bookkeeping, like financial advice, is a very competitive space.
It is.
There's lots of people out there doing it. So what advice would you give to somebody that's starting out or looking to grow?
Look, at the risk of sounding a little bit like everyone else does, you really do need to be genuine. And it's not just about your profession and the advice that you give in and around what you do. You need to give advice around business as a whole. So bookkeepers we're business advisors. We're actually the most trusted profession, even though we're not the most well-used profession. And statistics show that people really trust the advice that we give. And that's kind of where the show came from, because I wanted to surround myself with experts and get really good advice for my clients. The radio is a great format to get long range or long form interviews and get the information out there. So I guess when I give advice to others about marketing themselves, do something different. Do something that really represents you. Obviously, I'm very comfortable talking, and so radio is a natural fit for me. But I'm lucky that I stumbled upon that 5 years ago. These days, every man and his dog's got a podcast. So maybe a little bit down the track, it'd be a bit more obvious. You need to take your time. You can't just position yourself as the expert within 6 months. It's just not going to happen. And you need to explore different avenues. You might try a little bit of LinkedIn work. You might try a little bit of Facebook work. I did Facebook for about 6 months. Total waste of time for what I'm doing because I wasn't speaking to businesses. And for me personally, I found that the LinkedIn space was the best one for me. But that's not to say your business doesn't communicate effectively on Facebook. You need to explore the programs, understand what options you've got within the software, and how to make the most of it. It doesn't mean you need to pay for it, but you need to give it time. So you pay for it in time, and the positioning comes, I guess, slowly with experience and understanding what you want to be. And that's not going to come straight away either, because you need to say, well, what am I? Okay, I'm a bookkeeper. Great. So is everybody else. What can I do to position myself and build a reputation? The one piece of advice I would give, though, is just be really careful muddying the waters with your social life. So if you are doing Facebook videos such as this, and you're doing regular updates with people on what you're doing, don't tell people about what you're doing in your personal life or with your kids. It's kind of a different space. It is a bit off-putting, and people honestly don't want to hear about it if you're trying to position yourself professionally. That's unless, of course, you are professionally in that space, which of course you need to be the expert because your children are your expertise. So it's really about exploring the different mediums, understanding how they work, doing a bit of beta testing, look back on your posts. Which ones got the best hits? What was I talking about? What was I interested in? What time of the day was it? How awake was I? Had I had my coffee by then? All those sort of questions. So I think it's it does take time. That would be my biggest piece of advice. Look, 5 years down the track, I'm finally figuring out what I want to do with Small Biz Matters, and it's taken that long.
Really great advice, because it's a really difficult balance, I think, sometimes to get it right between business and personal, and figuring out the strategy that ultimately gets you the most traction. And I like what you said about trial and error, and I think a lot of businesses, especially for myself as well, it's a matter of going out there and trialing something, and if it doesn't work, refining that. And throughout that process, you'll learn, you'll grow, and you'll develop. And I think that's the ultimate when you're trying to market yourself, is finding what really works for you and what actually really talks to your consumer and who your consumer is. You know, when you're starting out, most people don't know who that is.
Yeah.
Well, they focus very, very widely. But when you start getting traction and results, you can start analysing that data and shifting that space. So
yeah.
I would definitely agree with that advice. So.
And be quick to let things go, because if something's not working, don't flog a dead horse, because your time is more valuable than paying for Facebook posts or even paying for a VA to be posting things for you. You know, just before the interview we were talking about people who copy other people's positioning or the way that they do it.
Happens all the time on on Instagram. Don't worry, we can see you. There are posts.
You look the same as the other guy. Don't do that.
Exactly.
Don't do that.
There are posts that are filtered through so many linked Instagram, influencers or whatever that come up, and you're like, I've seen this 3 times before,
Yep.
and by 3 different people in the same network. Come on, guys.
Yeah.
Like, we can all see what's going on here.
And saying that as well, don't just pick up some random article about small business and repost it. And the people who really don't give much thought to it are the ones who use the same title as the name of the article in their post. And so they get the post that has the article name, then the article name, and then the article. And you're like, you didn't even think about this at all, did you? This is almost like, did you do this with automation? And that's the worst as well. The way to look the least genuine is by using AI. Because we are humans, we are not robots, and you'll get picked up for being a robot super quick.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
You have to be genuine. You have to build your audience through genuine connections.
Yep.
And I always say there's 7 touch points. There's 7 ways. When I was consulting to the ATO and they're all sitting there going, how can we engage with small business? It's like, well, you have to behave like a small business. You need 7 different ways to get the information out there. You need to get on the ground, get out there into networking groups. You need to get onto local media, whether that be your local community radio station or perhaps in the local paper with a bit of PR. Get a good PR guy on side, even if it's just to get some advice from every so often. You've got to be on Facebook a little bit in some way, even if it's just your local reputation. LinkedIn. If you're business to business, there's no other space, in my opinion, to be in. And just find other ways to get out there as well. There's more in emerging markets, but again, testing, figure out what works, look at your hits, look at your likes and all that stuff, and figure out what's the best, what's working and what's not, and drop it like a hot potato if it's not working.
Cool, great advice. So I know it's February now, 2019, but what are your business goals for this year? So,
This massive.
Yep.
I'm really, really looking forward to this year. I finally feel as though this little baby that is Small Biz Matters is evolving into something bigger than me. And I guess what's important for me is keeping that as a really good source of small business education. For those of you who aren't familiar with it, it's long form. So a lot of us out there are no longer after those 15-second grabs of information. We don't just read the titles anymore. We want really good, chunky, get your teeth into small business education. And that's what I've been trying to provide for the last 5 years. So that's exploding, getting lots of information out there, getting people to subscribe to the iTunes channel. And then after that, I'm looking at the conference space, beginning to start doing some panel moderation. So if anybody out there's got a panel, they've got a meetup group or something coming up, and they'd like to have their panel professionally moderated, then I'd love to assist you with that. So get in touch.
Awesome. Well, Just lastly, thank you so much for coming next Thursday night to present at the second BAM event for 2019. Can't believe it's the second one already. God. Tell us a little bit about what participants that are coming along are to expect from the evening.
Well, the one thing is you're going to need a notepad and a pen, because we're going to be it's funny bedfellows, radio and bookkeeping. But what we're going to do is we're going to give you some really great tips on what we as BAS agents see typically for GST errors. So you're going to pick up some really great tips on what to do, what not to do correctly, how to surround yourself with the right advisor, what to ask whenever you're engaging with a bookkeeper as well, and what you should expect from them to provide you with. Plus, I'm going to talk a little bit about my journey with Small Biz Matters and the evolution of radio in my business, and also some good tips on how to market yourself effectively and do different and interesting things when you're positioning yourself out there.
Great, really looking forward to that. Thank you again for coming down this morning, and thank you for having a chat to us about what to expect, a little bit more about yourself. So if anyone's got any questions, feel free to come along next Thursday night. We'll pop the details in the comment section below, and we hope to see you there.
Thanks, Sarah. I'm really looking forward to it.